How's it going, everyone? It's Johnny Beard here with another Tier List Thursdays YouTube video. I hope you are well. And I was like, I'm not sure what I'm going to do this week. And I thought, well, to make a good thing from a bad situation, for those who do not know, I stream on Twitch and YouTube, and we tried to finish Final Fantasy X on Saturday and failed. We have been kind of, going through the game very much, not doing any grinding or anything like that, and we hit a certain point called Braska's Final Aeon, and we miserably lost. We needed to do some grinding and stuff like that, and we have the final Final Fantasy X stream actually happening on this Wednesday, although that might be quite a short stream, because my hope is that I'm just literally going to defeat Braska's Final Aeon, beat the game and move on. We will be moving on to, speaking of moving on, to Golden Sun. We'll be playing some Golden Sun, hopefully Wednesday, straight after that stream, if you want to check that out as well. But because we're still on Final Fantasy X, we haven't beat the game yet. And I was stumbling across some tier lists, obviously, on Tiermaker. And I found this very interesting Final Fantasy X tier list. We have covered Final Fantasy X on this channel on the Tier List Thursdays. Check that out. It happened a couple of weeks ago. We ranked Final Fantasy X characters. But I found this one. This is an interesting Final Fantasy X tier list. This is basically doing a breakdown and review almost of every single aspect of the game. So we've got the heroes, the combat, the music, the side quests. We're literally ranking everything in the game. And I thought that'd be quite a cool alternative tier list. We did an alternative tier list last week. Again, you can check that out. We covered 30 random PS1 games to celebrate the PS1 turning 30 years old. So I thought, keeping on the topic of doing slightly different, let's do this one, shall we? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to take each topic and we're going to put it into C tier. We're going to talk about the topic and then we're going to rank it. And in terms of this list particularly, I'm going to rank this against other Final Fantasy games and just gaming in general. So, because overall, my opinions on Final Fantasy X are very strong. But is it my favorite Final Fantasy game? No. Is it my favorite game? Is it my favorite game? No. But is it up there amongst the best Final Fantasy games and the best games of all time? Yes. So, let's see how we get on, shall we? So, let's start off with this little thing, the intro. So it's an interesting thing to kind of discuss the intro as a topic, really, of this. So again, we're going to compare the intro to other intros to the Final Fantasy series and other intros in gaming in general, and I would say Final Fantasy X's intro is actually very solid. I think the intro sets the tone very well. Again, Zanarkand, obviously from 1,000 years ago, is a very interesting setting. And you get to meet Tidus, you get to name him, you get to meet Auron, who's very mysterious at this point in the game, and then you see this hecking big monstrosity called Sin, attack the city and stuff like that, and then you're like transported 1,000 years into the future, and it's like, what the hell's going on? It's crazy, but it's cool. Again, the Blitzball scene and sequence is incredible. Again, I remember playing this game when it came out. This is one of my first PS2 games. It was one of the first PS2 games ever made, and it looked incredible. Like, graphics when this game came out, there was nothing like it. So again, seeing that Blitzball scene was like, for me, again, of course, the Other Worlds theme is just absolutely banging, unless you're going against Braska's Final Aeon for 3 hours solid. Anyway. But as an intro, this is brilliant. It's an excellent intro to a fantastic game. I'm going to go with A tier. I might rank it differently as we go on, but for me, generally speaking, I think the intro to Final Fantasy X is exceptional. To be perfectly honest with you. Sticking with the theme of the story, let's talk about the Spira plot. That's on here, which is again just quite interesting to kind of talk about as a plot in general. So just for context, there's also a plot for romance plot that we'll be talking about specifically later on, probably straight afterwards actually. So this is covering the majority of the game, the majority of the plot, the overall premise that is in front of us in terms of the world of Spira. Zanarkand being 1,000 years into the future, a pile of rubble, exploring this new exotic world called Spira. You know, the characters that you interact with, the plot that happens around it. You know, Sin destroying towns and cities and stuff like that. You know, and just generally speaking, you know, the plot of the game. You know, yeah. I mean, personally speaking, I think the Spira plot is excellent. I think that Spira as a location is cool. It's a really, really cool place. I like exploring the world. Again, each town and city is very different from one another and has its own unique quirks and stuff like that. I think the plot around Yevon and the Al Bhed and Sin and Machina and the religious teachings of Yevon and stuff like that is all solid stuff. The spiral of death that happens in the world of Spira is brilliant. You know, of course, the relationship that Jecht has with Oren and Braska from 10 years ago, the relationship that Tidus has with Yuna is really good. Again, we're going to be talking about romance plots shortly, so we won't go into any specific detail. But again, your characters, their depths of their, you know, what they go through is really, really good as well. It's strong. It's a very strong plot. Final Fantasy X's plot in general is very strong. I am going to go with an 80 again on this here. And we're going to keep it there. Again, we might flip these things around. So, yeah. And then we got the romance plot. So the romance plot, obviously, is the romance between Tidus and Yuna. And again, one thing I haven't really kind of compared to, I said I was going to compare these to other Final Fantasy games, maybe other games in general. And I suppose I can compare the romance of 10 quite easily to the romance of other Final Fantasy games. So, you know, I do think overall, I think that Tidus and Yuna's romance is actually dealt with very well. I like, one of my favorite moments in the game is not really the kiss scene. I actually find that people, hot take perhaps, but I think the romance scene in this game, the actual romance scene, is a bit weird. I think the FMV looks a bit odd, and again, them going through the water, and like, I think some of the shots, even though they're supposed to be romantic, like, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of that scene. Some people go like, oh my god, I do not think that scene is that romantic. I like the build up to the scene, but then the scene itself is like, eh. And then again, I like the after. The actual scene I've always thought was a bit, I don't know, I don't get any feels about it. I don't get chills or anything. But one of my favourite parts is actually afterwards, when Tidus is walking away, is just to say, I'll go on ahead, and Yuna's like, I'll stay behind. So it doesn't look obvious that they've been doing all the smooching in front of Kimahri. And then Yuna just quickly runs behind Tidus and holds his hand as if to say, I don't care. I want to hold your hand and I want people to know that we've been together, type of thing. I think that's a really nice, subtle moment. Again, I love the naivete of their romance as well. That it's quite cute and quite innocent, and you know, it doesn't feel shoehorned in like some of the other plots, some of the other romance plots in the series. Kind of just feel like it's kind of pushed upon you. As these people are lovers, and it's like, no, I love the subtlety of Yuna and Tidus' relationship. It is very nice and very subtle, you know, and then, you know, of course, it is very, very sad in the end, or is it, depending on how it gets involved with talking about Final Fantasy X, which we're not going to talk about. It's a bittersweet ending. If you just take the ending of 10 for what it is and not talk about the sequel, the ending of 10's plot is very, very sad and bittersweet. I'm going to go with BT here. I think that there might be, I would probably say my favourite romance story, believe it or not. It probably is 9, but I mean, I'm Final Fantasy's favourite, so it kind of goes without question almost. But I do think that Tidus and Yuna's romance is up there. I mean, I'm kind of debating putting it to A tier. I kind of think BT is kind of a bit maybe too low. I'm going to give it F for now, and then we'll make a decision afterwards. Okay, we're now going to talk about the heroes of the game. So this is your main cast, isn't it? So this is Tidus, Yuna, Oren, Wakka, Lulu, Riku, and Kimahri. As a cast, I think 10 is strong. I think 10's got a great cast, diverse characters with really well written, character arcs and stuff like that. People talk about how much of a dick Whacker is, but again, his redemption arc, which we covered in the last tier list we did on Function 10, which you should check out. But as a solid selection of 7 characters, I think Function 10's set of heroes is very good. They all play off each other very, very nicely. Do I prefer other characters in other Final Fantasy games? I would say probably yes. They're probably, I'd say, it's a selection of characters individually. I don't think I like 10's characters as much as, say, 9's characters or 7's characters. But I think if you talk about them as a group, I do think 10 has a really strong cast. Arguably a better cast than 9, really. To be honest with you, even though I do specifically like the characters in 9 individually better. But I just think that there's a certain wholeness of the characters in 10. They come together as a clump of characters. They're really good. They work well to and for and against each other. I'm going to go with B tier because I said that it's kind of an interesting one to kind of talk about. But they are a very good selection. I think again you can make an argument that all of these should be A tier, really. To be honest with you, in the end, Function 10 is for me an A tier game. If I was to fully rank this game as a game, where would I place this? I'd probably put it under A tier. I think it's an A tier game. But let's keep going. Let's keep going. So, let's go with the villains then. Now, this is an area where I would say, actually, believe it or not, is not so good. Now, I covered this a little bit in the Function 10 tier list that we did with the characters. Now, it's kind of shoehorned in that Jecht/Sin is the main villain, and I think I mentioned that I think that Seymour is a much better villain in 10 than Jecht/Sin ever is or was. And I think that because of that imbalance, that the technical secondary villain is a much better villain, then I think that makes it quite difficult, really, to kind of bump this high up. I'm debating keeping this into C tier, to be honest with you, or certainly B at a push, because I'm just not that big a fan. I think most of the best Final Fantasy villains tends to be when it's one person that you concentrate on that does dastardly shit. Kefka, Sephiroth, Kuja, other villains that are great as well. Bartandalus in 13 is underrated, which we won't go into because we're not covering that game. Seymour. If Seymour was was primed. Like it's almost like as if to say if they changed the plot somehow that somehow Jecht was ejected. No pun intended. That's a great pun. Jecht was ejected from his seat out in Sin, and somehow Seymour did interweave into taking over and absorbing Sin, which was what he wanted to do, but you stopped him before he got to that point. Then I think actually it would have been a much better kind of finale, because again, we're talking about villains. Yu Yevon is terrible. Absolutely awful villain. Another good villain, however, is Yunalesca, who does not get, as I think we talked about Yunalesca in good detail in the tier list, and saying that again in terms of maximizing your airtime, Yunalesca's up there. She's excellent in the short time that you do talk to her and interact with her before you murder her ass. So I just feel like the shift in the balance isn't great. Personally speaking, there are some good villains in 10, no dispute, but I just don't think they're necessarily pushed into the right areas, if that makes sense. Like, I think Seymour and Yunalesca should be higher up, and I think that Jecht, who's kind of an anti-hero anyway, should have been lowered down, and Yu Yevon shouldn't have heckin' existed as an actual boss anyway. In terms of a character for lore and stuff like that, fine, but in terms of you going against him as the final boss and the way that they implement that fight, it's just shit. So, I'm going to keep this into C tier. I think that, again, I might make an argument that maybe these could be here and then that could be there. But just for now, let's keep this as it is. So, I now want to talk about the world. So again, I kind of feel like we covered this a bit in the Spira plot. So we're talking about the plot of the game. Now we're talking about the world itself. And we did kind of talk about it in the Spira plot, but let's talk about the world of Spira, which is stunning. Again, I remember this game coming out and just seeing Besaid for the first time, seeing like Zanarkand as the city that never sleeps. Oh, just incredible. Again, Lucas Stadium, seeing it being, you know, the water pumping into the stadium was really cool. I mean, seeing oh my god, when you go to the far plane. Sorry, I was thinking of the live stream. I was like, live stream? No, that's 47. The far plane. The far plane is stunning. It's kind of crappy that you don't really technically return to the far plane. I know you can, but you don't really in terms of the plot. The far plane is beautiful and very haunting. You know, the Calmlands is really nice and really sweet and cool. You know, there's so many great moments in terms of the world being presented as it is. The world of Final Fantasy X is stunning. One of the better worlds of the Final Fantasy series, if you ask me. We're going to put this into the A tier. But it's Scanning Hand, we kind of covered it a little bit in the Spira plot anyway. So, now let's talk about the music of the game. Now, as you can probably hear, the Final Fantasy X music soundtrack is exceptional. I mean, let's be honest, Final Fantasy music is amazing anyway. Is it one of my favorite soundtracks? I wouldn't say no, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing that is the bad. For me, Final Fantasy X's music is exceptional. I just personally prefer Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 7 soundtracks, but I mean 10 is a strong entry in the series, and in terms of gaming in general, it's definitely up there. It's one of the best music produced and composed in video gaming history. Each theme, each piece of music sets the tone very, very well. Again, hot take, I prefer the original music to the they reworked the music, didn't they, for the remaster. I mean, we've been playing the game with the remaster music all stream series. I wish I could retract it. There's not many pieces of music that I think are better in the rearranged music. I prefer most of the OG, but that's just me. But yeah, as we're talking about the OG anyway, music for me again has got to be A tier. It's some of the best music in the series. Is it my favorite? No. Is it up there? Absolutely. Some of the best music ever made. That is for sure. And we can now talk about voice acting. Now, this, of course, we have to consider the context here that this was the first Final Fantasy game with proper voice acting in it. And is it good? Is it bad? For me, I think it's okay. I think the voice acting in this game is fine. People give it a bit of a bad reputation, if you ask me. People obviously talk about James Arnold Taylor's performance as Tidus, and of course which of course they've used that fucking picture for this image, of course, for. It's iconic. Let's be honest. No matter what, Final Fantasy X's voice acting for me it's as iconic as Resident Evil 1 OG. Again, that is a lot more cheesy, and people always take the mickey out of how bad RE1 OG's voice acting is. But there's a certain charm to it. I love the voice acting in RE1, personally speaking. But there are people who can't stand it. I'm not in that bracket. I have a similar set of feelings for Final Fantasy X. People don't like the voice acting in 10, but some people really like it. It is iconic. It was the first of its kind in terms of a Final Fantasy game, and I think overall it is fine. I don't think it's awful. I don't think I don't think it is amazing, however, either. So I'm kind of leaning between B and C tier here. Gonna go with C tier, just for balance, really. Yeah. I forgot to mention the NPCs before. So we covered the heroes and the villains, but we haven't really talked about the NPCs. I missed that bit before. And I do think that the non-playable characters in Final Fantasy X are really good. It's a great selection, I've got to be honest with you. You know, there's some excellent side characters in the game. Like, I love the interactions that you have with, like, the summoners, you know, Belgemine and Donna. You know, and yeah, they're really good. Again, we talk about Unaleska. Technically, is she an NPC or is she a villain? Again, we're showing you some of the maesters. You know, we've got Maester Micah, Maester Keenock. They're good. Yeah, I think you know you got Brother, you got Sid, you got the Albed. You've got, you know, there's some really good characters in this game. Yeah, I think that the NPCs are solid. I don't think that they are amazing, but again, considering, you know, this was the first Final Fantasy game with voice acting, and when you think about that as well, I think you've got to give a good amount of respect there. I'm kind of thinking that the NPCs as a solid B here. They are very good overall, just personally speaking. Right, so we're now, let's talk about the summons then. So summons are always iconic in Final Fantasy games, right? Some of their sequences, their move sets, their image, you know, their overdrive / limit break or whatever you want to call it. Summons are some of the most important parts of any Final Fantasy game. And 10 has a solid selection. A solid selection of summons. Now, I was comparing how I think Final Fantasy 9 is probably my favorite Final Fantasy game of all time. One thing that I don't think that Final Fantasy 9 does very well is, in terms of in battle, is the summons. Now, in terms of the plot, putting summons into the plot, Final Fantasy 9 is excellent. The Eidolons and stuff like that. You don't really have them being part of the plot in 10. There's a little bit of Valvor available, and that's about it. And a little bit of Bahamut, of course. You know, but that's about it. But in terms of the iconicness, the imagery, the being used in battle, again, being able to use summons in battle. This is the first, if I'm not mistaken, the first Final Fantasy game where you can actually control your Aeons, your summons. And again, I remember that being, oh my god, I'm getting to play as this massive like Valvor dragon bird thing. I don't know what the heck it is. It's got breasts, a bit weird. It's got a really weird keychain. Anyway, it looks badass. Oh my god, I'm playing as Ifrit, you know, that thing. Oh, is it Ifrit? You know, yeah, the summons in Final Fantasy 10, and it's a real solid. You know what? I'm actually thinking of an S tier here with the summons. I do genuinely think it's one of the best, if not the best, selections of summons in any Final Fantasy game. Up there for sure. I may well say the best. I may well say actually it is possibly the best selection of summons in any Final Fantasy game. You know, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with that. I think that is my opinion. I do think that the summons are the best in this game. There's so many bangers. You know, again, playing as I said as Valvor, Ifrit is great. I kind of was not as big a fan as Ixion as I was of Ramur, but that's fine. Again, Shiva's brilliant. Bahamut is amazing. And Bahamut is amazing in nearly every game he's in. And they changed his design, quite controversial design with Final Fantasy 10. I kind of had a love-hate relationship with the design of Final Fantasy 10's Bahamut, because like him being like with this like the folded arms and stuff was just a bit weird, because it almost made him human-like, whereas he's a dragon. But I mean, his moveset, his impulse attack, his dark flare, just again. Oh, I just love him. Absolutely love him. And again, you got fucking Anima. Anima, the best one-off summon of all time, in my opinion. I don't think there's a better summon that is only one game than Anima. Absolutely. Chef's kiss. Your Jimbo's really fun to use, of course. You got Zanmotto and stuff like that. And of course, you got the Maga Sisters, which are great. I love playing and fighting with the Maga Sisters until they start taking a break consistently, which we had problems with on Saturday, but we won't go into that. Overall, brilliant, absolutely exceptional selection of summons in this game. So yeah, I'm going to go with S tier though. So let's now talk about the combat in the game. Now, this was the first time we had dropped the famous ATB battle system, the active time battle system, and this was kind of a reworking of it, so that way you didn't have a bar, but you would have turns that were put into place in terms of like the speed and your agility of your characters and stuff like that, and if certain moves were delaying and stuff like that. It was a very cool system. It tried to do something that wasn't too much of a departure. It wasn't too much of a departure from the ATB system, but it was enough of a departure that they wanted to try and make the game more slick. It was quite clear that Square Enix, were going in the direction of trying to make the games more action-paced rather than, you know, tactical turn-by-turn based combat. You know, which again is a massive hot take in the Final Fantasy community. Is turn-based battle, is turn-based Final Fantasy better than action Final Fantasy? I am an old school boomer that thinks that turn-based battling is better, but you know, I'm fine with some of the action-y heavy Final Fantasy games. This was trying to be in the middle. In fact, again, we're gonna comment on Final Fantasy X-2. I think Final Fantasy X-2 made a better battle system than 10. I think again both are very good, but I think 10.2 is arguably the best combination of the ATB battle system and fluidity and speed. They really got a really nice flow between action and turn-based with 10.2, and I think that's a battle system they need to return to, for being honest with you. They got it pretty much bang on, because that was the thing about Final Fantasy 10, is that they tried to make it more slick and more quick without having the turn-based, but equally you can kind of build up your moveset. I always remember the best way in terms of trying to get the action sequence going in Final Fantasy 10 as a story, it's when you go get Kimahri right at the beginning of the game. You know, that boss fight between Kimahri and Tidus. Again, the attack the back and forth between Tidus and Kimahri. If you do that battle quickly, it looks great. It's really quick and slick, and that was obviously the direction they were going with. And again, for those who didn't know, that is the first fight you have in one of the demos of Final Fantasy X as well. So if you played a demo of 10 when it came out, you likely would have gone against Kimahri as your first battle, unless you did the other demo instead. Yeah, anyway, combat in 10 is very good. I really enjoy it. Some of the overdrives are great, some of the moves are great. You know, I love using Auron and using his armor break. I love how he got like the piercing element in this game as well. That's very unique. That's not a major thing in many Final Fantasy games, and I quite like that becomes a heavy feature to be considered for this game. The magic is really good. You know, yeah, combat is solid in 10, that's for sure. And I'm going to go with, again, I feel like I'm with A tier here. It's a very strong entry into Final Fantasy series, and it's a really strong landmark entry in the Final Fantasy game series, both as a combat and as a game as well, because after this they start to really go down the action heavy route with Final Fantasy 12 and 13. So some people do debate that the last great Final Fantasy game is 10. Some people say 9. Whatever. You know, in the end, I still like some of the more modern games, so, you know, that's just me. But 10's great for a battle system, that's for sure. And then we got the Sphere Grid. So the Sphere Grid, again, a big departure. Instead of having level ups for characters, so you don't get to level 99 and that's it, you can get as many level ups as you want. It was quite a cool departure and alternative way of playing and leveling up your characters, so you don't level up just holistically as a whole character stats. You can stat up your characters if you want. So you can say, I want that and that, and I want that HP, I want that strength, I don't want that speed. And again, each character, technically, if you keep them down their individual sphere grid until they get to the end of them, would all have very different abilities and stats. So therefore you'd have like Auron with a really strong strength stat, and you'd have Riku with a really what does she have actually? I can't remember. Maybe it's a bad example, but I think she's fast, isn't she? Yes, she is. She's arguably the fastest character in the whole game. So like when it comes to like agility, like Riku's up there. Wak is really strong with his accuracy, but he's also very strong as well. Obviously Yuna with her magic stat and stuff like that. So, you know, it's a really cool system. I do like the sphere grid. I do think, however, it is a little OTT. Like again, when you get to end game, as we currently are in at the moment, there's a massive leap between the end game and the grinding you need to do the other stuff post game. You know, like the Dark Aeons and the monster catching and stuff like that. Stuff we're going to be talking about shortly, actually. The jump is massive. Again, going against Penance as well as the Dark Aeons. Like the things you've got to do on your sphere grid to maximize it, to be able to even have a punt at taking on some of the Dark Aeons and penances is ridiculous. So I think that is an issue I do have. And again, there was a lot of complexities with the advanced sphere grid or the standard sphere grid. It wasn't well explained at the time, and it's kind of annoying retrospectively playing this game in terms of like you are shooting yourself in the foot if you choose standard sphere grid, but obviously the standard sphere grid is there to set you on your path towards doing your own thing. Setting you on a path to be able to steer your characters in a way that you should steer them. But there was no explanation for it. And as I said, it's a detriment really if you do choose standard, because there's certain spheres that are locked more so than on the advanced sphere grid, so that you're actually playing as a detriment to yourself by not choosing advanced. So yeah, I overall, again we're going COB here, I do like the quirkiness of the sphere grid, but equally I do prefer traditional leveling up. I'm going to go C tier here. I kind of feel like maybe it's a BC, but I'm going to go with C because it's fine, it's okay. And then next up we've got the celestial weapons, or the ultimate weapons, depending on what you refer it to. Obviously in Final Fantasy X it is called the celestial weapons. This is something I'm not a big fan of. I never liked the idea that you had to unlock the actual weapon. You had to use like a cloudy mirror to open that chest. You then need to get a crest and a sigil to be able to maximize the power of that weapon. I feel like it was always OTT. I always feel like it was over the top, it was too much, and it was really a ball ache to get the ultimate weapons of your characters. And don't forget there's 7 of them, so technically you need 21 different things to get all your ultimate weapons, and the cloudy mirror, of course. So it's 22 then. So that's a lot. That's a lot of side quests. That's a lot of grinding or things you have to do to be able to maximize the technical, most important, powerful weapon in the game times 7. However, I love their design. I do like some of the side quests that are involved, and some of them are just awful. And I do like what they were trying to do. They were trying to make these celestial weapons kind of, they really wanted you to work hard to achieve them, to be fair. But equally, sometimes they weren't worth it. Sometimes some of the ultimate weapons, the celestial weapons, were like, it's fine. You sometimes found that customizing your own weapons was better. Because again, what also annoys me, there's one thing that I will say is a hot take / one thing that grinds my gears in certain Final Fantasy games, is when you get a weapon that will decrease in its strength when you get hit. And that's something that happens with Tierlist's weapon. I remember it happening with the ultimate weapon in Final Fantasy VII with Cloud. Like, why have I got this really strong weapon, and as soon as I lose all my health, my weapon is doing peanut damage? It's just going bop. I was wasting 20 health instead of 9,999. I hate that concept. And yet it happens with Tierlist. It happens with certain characters. They all kind of, depending on what their health is or what their stats are, sometimes the weapons will be more powerful or less powerful. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Orin's the opposite. I think Orin's weapon does more damage if he's on low health, but I might be wrong. I can't remember. Anyway, as a concept, I'm gonna keep celestial weapons here in the C. I kind of was debating to put it into D tier, to be honest with you, because I do find it frustrating. You know what? Yeah, I will. I'm gonna put this in the D tier. That might be a hot take, but I'm not the biggest fan of celestial weapons. I do prefer the more traditional methods of like Final Fantasy 7 and Final Fantasy 9's. Final Fantasy 9's is good as well. Final Fantasy 8 was a bit weird with the junk shop system, but it was still quirky enough. Celestial weapons, not my favourite way to get ultimate weapons in a Final Fantasy game, so And then we have got the side quests in the game. Now, again, we just kind of covered this a little bit with the special weapons, but side quests are hit and miss at Launch 10. Generally speaking. By the way, there's a whole section for Blitzball. We'll talk about Blitzball specifically as a side quest in a minute because that's its own section. But moving Blitzball aside, other side quests. There's some really interesting, some really quirky, some really good side quests in the game. I mean, you could argue that one big massive side quest is the Dark Aeons, which is excellent. I love the Dark Aeons side quest, although again we talk about the grinding of the sphere grid isn't my favorite. Again, I didn't like the big gulf in difficulty between, like, say, the Omega Ruins, which is the hardest dungeon in the game, and the Dark Aeons. The gulf is huge. You have to be doing so much grinding in the Omega Ruins and or inside of Sin to be able to even have a shot at beating Dark Valvor, the easiest of the Dark Aeons. It's a bit silly, but as a side quest, I love going against them. I love the design. I love their like evil summons type of thing. You know, he's the new traitor. You know, we've got to take these traitors out and stuff like that. I always loved that. It was a really cool. I remember seeing Dark Valvor for the first time, going back to be saved and shitting a bricks. Like, what the fuck is going on? He just kicked my ass. I love it. But that is just one side quest. There's other side quests. Of course, you've got the Chocobo racing, you've got the Chocobo dodging, you've got the butterfly catching, the lightning dodging, you've got the Cactor side quest as well. You know, there's also monster catching, but again, that has its own section, so we won't be talking specifically about that right now. We're talking about everything but monster catching and Blitzball. As a whole, I do like the side quests in 10. There are some that I don't like. I'm not a fan of lightning dodging. Again, for those who missed it, we got to 196 out of 200 consecutive lightning dodges, and we failed. We didn't finish lightning dodging, guys. I was absolutely heartbroken. That side quest can go kiss my ass. Butterfly catching, I'm not great at that. Some people hate the Chocobo dodging. I'm fine with it. I don't mind it at all. But I can appreciate, again, some people don't like it. I'm going to keep this in the C tier. I do feel like that might be a bit harsh, but overall, I do think that the side quests are good. Some of them are great, and some of them are not so good. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're going with that. So, speaking of side quests, there's two more specifically that we said we're going to talk about, and the first one is Blitzball. Now, I always find that Blitzball is like Marmite. People either love it or hate it. Personally, I love Blitzball. I've always loved playing Blitzball. I used to play so much Blitzball. I used to get really into it and try to build the ultimate team and try to unlock all the abilities, and used to do all the leagues and all that stuff and just have a great time with it. I love playing Blitzball, and if I'm not mistaken, I think there's a YouTube channel on YouTube, obviously, dedicated to like doing like genuine like season after season after season Blitzball tournaments. Like, people actually genuinely watch and enjoy them and make it a real thing type of thing. I do like Blitzball. Again, I appreciate it's not for everyone, but I genuinely really like it. This is my tier list, and I'm going to put Blitzball under B tier. I actually like Blitzball a lot. Yeah, and again, I love how certain Blitzballers are really fast, some of them are really strong, some of them have got some really very unique abilities. Like, probably my favourite ability in Blitzball is Tackle Slip. I love it when you got like someone like Zev Ronso, or one of the Ronsos, one of the big Ronsos, doing Tackle Slip, and he does like a backflip to dodge, like, I don't fucking know, one of the Luca Goers or something like that. It's hilarious. It's so much fun. So funny. I love Tackle Slip. I love Sphere Shot as well. Personally, I prefer using Sphere Shot over the Jack Shot. I do like the Jack Shot, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. I feel like it's too easy. Personally speaking, I think if you use the Jack Shot to take out two defenders, it just makes the game too easy. The only time I kind of would consider using it is that first game of Blissful against the Luca Goers, because that is really hard. But yeah, anyway, Blissful, a lot of fun for me. I appreciate it's not for everyone. And then let's talk about the Monster Arena. So again, when we talk about the Dark Aeons, we talk about the Sphere Grid, and we talk about how OTT and how much of a grind fest this game can be. The Monster Arena kind of comes into that. Like, to catch 10 of every single monster in the game takes so long. Although I do like the concept of it. I do like the idea that you unlock some of the most powerful monsters created by this evil old genius who uses your monsters that you've caught to make some absolutely horrific creations that you've got to take on, and they're so hard. It's cool. I like it. I don't dislike monster catching, I must be honest, but it is a grind. It's a grind. It just takes a long time, and I think that is my issue with it. I do think that this is the turning point in Final Fantasy games where side quests and side content really was kind of oversaturated and overdone. I feel like the balance was perfect in the PS1 era. The Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9 side quests were really good because you didn't have to do too much grinding to do most of them. You might have to do a little bit of grinding, or you need to be thinking outside the box slightly from certain tactics and stuff like that. But generally speaking, they were quite, you didn't have to do so much grinding. Whereas in 10, once you get to that point where you've got Monster Arena and you've got Dark Aeons, you're like, God, the jump in terms of setting up your sphere grid to be able to take on these absolute units is not so much fun for me. So I'm going to keep Monster Arena in C tier. I do enjoy it as a concept, but I do feel like in terms of the side quests, there was definitely better, and there was a few that were worse. So we're going to finish off, guys. We've got one more thing to cover, and that is the ending of Final Fantasy X. And let's be completely honest, Final Fantasy X's ending is amazing. It is one of the best endings in Final Fantasy history. It's one of my favorite endings in any video game. And, we talk about Final Fantasy X-2. There is a very strong part of me that does wish that X-2 did not exist. Whilst I don't dislike the game, I get a lot of people like, oh, X-2 sucks, it's very girly, and I don't mind it. I thought X-2 was fine. I just don't think it was necessary. I really feel like the ending of 10 is so complete, so whole, so, it just hit the spot so perfectly, and I do feel like having the sequel takes away from how good this ending is. It's why I don't personally want a Final Fantasy 9 sequel to happen, because 9's ending, I feel in the same way. It ends perfectly. You don't need to change anything. So this is where it gets difficult, because I would say that 10's ending, my personal favorite endings in the Final Fantasy series are 9 and 10. Genuinely, I think 7's is not great. 8 is nice as well. 8's got a really good ending, but 9 and 10 hit the spot here for me, But if we're talking about 10-2 afterwards, then I kind of feel like going here. You know what I mean? I don't think, if you consider the sequel aspect, it's not the end. So, and then they make some some choices I don't agree with. With Tidus's fate and stuff like that. So, but we're talking about 10 as an ending, and on the basis of an ending, I have to go with S tier. I think it's one of my all-time favorite endings. We hopefully will be finishing this game on Wednesday. I just realized this whole video will be posted on Thursday, which means that it happened yesterday for you guys. I'm obviously recording this in advance. So hopefully you might have seen me bawl my eyes out at the ending of this game if you watch back that VOD that we would have posted and done by now. I don't know if I will cry, but we'll find out. But yeah, it's one of my favorite endings. So that's it, guys. That is the end of the tier list Thursdays. I would love to know what you guys want me to cover. We are going into December now, obviously, and therefore, do you guys want me to do some Christmas or end of year style tier lists. Is there a different game you want me to cover? I'm not really quite sure where we're going to go next with Tier List Thursdays, but you know, it'll be a surprise to me as much as it is for you. But I would love to hear what you think, what you want. Let me know in the comments, or reach out to me if you want on Twitter or Blue Sky or on Twitch or YouTube, of course, live. And I'll see you hopefully for the next one. Much love. Take care. Bye.